As I discussed in my last video, when you sit down to play a game in the side-scrolling beat-em-up genre, you really aren't expecting too much variety in the gameplay. That is what made doing a Let's Play with this game kind of difficult. Yeah, the backdrops are different, and a few of the bosses are interesting, particularly the last one. But you tend to fight many of the same enemies with different outfits and powers. It's kind of hard to provide thoughtful commentary as I'm playing the game because the genre just tends to be kind of mind-numbing. So instead, I'm just going to wrap this puppy up with a long-form review, which we're going to start right now. One quick note about spoilers, there really isn't too much here to spoil. The story is kind of an afterthought as the action really drives the experience, but in the interest of protecting what secrets I can, I won't discuss unlockables until the end of the video, and I'll provide the proper warnings and timestamps and all of that jazz. I honestly don't know what I was expecting here when I got into this game, but there was one thing that was pretty clear right from the beginning. This game looks awesome. The art, the backdrops, the graphical feel of the game is just fantastic. The characters have sort of this anime look to them. I don't know. I don't know if that was inspired. I don't know if the development studio just kind of designs in that kind of in that structure. The cutscenes are even they're kind of provided in this form of panels that feel much like a comic strip. The environments feel like updated versions of the predecessors, right? Like in the old side-scrolling beat-em-ups, you would have kind of just like still images in the back, or maybe like one thing is motioning, like cars driving by, just kind of straight back and forth. These kind of feel like updated versions of that, right? Where you would get just kind of a set piece, and it was a pretty still set piece, right? Almost like just like, you know, images, and then they would use that image and kind of stretch it out, and that's your background. They kind of did this in Resident Evil, I think, too, where you have just kind of like still set pieces, and then you kind of move around them. But the set pieces themselves are just images, and that's kind of they're pre-rendered like images almost. They're not they're not too interactive. There's some interactive elements in this game, but the environments themselves are just kind of backdrops. Now some of them are a little like you'll see a guy like moving around or doing like the same motion over and over again, but they're pretty cool. I mean, it really is kind of a modern version of what you got in the past, and to say the least, they're stimulating. That's at the very least. Perhaps now is the time to talk about the audio, because this is probably the biggest highlight of the game. You're given a choice to play the modern new music and the retro music, but I would encourage everyone to play through with the new music because it's a huge win. The music sort of sets the mood and the stage for each level, and it does so in a really, really fitting way. There's a level, it takes place in Chinatown, and I could see some SJWs saying that this music is a bit stereotypy, but you know what? The music fits the feel of Chinatown, so it just does. A few times I find myself moving in my chair to the music. Now, I don't know if that was just a way to distract my body from feeling the pain that was in my thumbs after playing this game for several hours, or if the music was just that good that it had me actually moving. The level design here is on par with what you would get in a side-scrolling beat-em-up. At times, you can interact with your environment, destroying part of a stage to create a new hazard, or to provide with a weapon or a food item. But there were definitely frustrating points here where grenades would fall off the map only to blow up, but they would hurt me anyways. But for the most part, the level design here is pretty good. The characters are fairly different. Honestly, they are. Blaze and Axel are kind of your stalwarts, right? They've been in previous versions of this game, and they feel the most familiar and they feel the most average. If you want just like kind of an average playthrough of this game, I would highly recommend you playing as one of these two characters. If you want to change it up a little bit, you are provided with both Cherry and Floyd, and each of them play a bit differently. Cherry is super fast, right? She's the one with the guitar on her back, and she moves a lot faster than the other characters, where Floyd is a lot stronger. He can pick up and throw enemies around as if they were ragdolls. So having these contrasting styles, and then you got your middle ground of Blaze and Axel, it kind of does suit the game with how you want to play. Do you like moving around fast? Well, pick Cherry. Do you like being the beefy? Pick Floyd. Or do you like just a decent experience? Pick Blaze or Axel. You're going to get pretty average, but you're going to get kind of a well-rounded balance. It's pretty nice. The differences here allow for variation. That's the key in these types of games, right? Because a lot of times when you're playing the side-scrolling beat 'em up, they feel samey. So having any variation at all is kind of nice and encourages a little bit of going back to the game to play with the different characters. This is really, really important when it comes to grinders because there's a lot to unlock here, but you got to grind for it. I'll cover that a bit later in depth. Gameplay is what you would really expect here. It really honestly is, and there's not much to talk about. The bosses provide some variation in the gameplay. They really do. Every now and then you'll encounter a boss and you're kind of like, whoa, this is a pretty different mechanic. But in all honesty, the enemies are kind of the same. I mean, you'll get different enemies, but once you play them once, you know what to expect. Now, they change a little bit as their outfits change, which is kind of a standard thing for a side-scrolling beat-em-up, right? You would get 18 of the same enemy. Each of them has a different colored hair, so each of them has a different color, different ability. And maybe the one with the pink hair is the strongest one, or whatnot. You do end up playing bosses through later levels. So what'll happen is you'll beat a boss. Later you'll face the same boss, but maybe there'll be two of them, so the difficulty's upped a little bit. You know what I mean? Or maybe he'll have a different power, or he'll be he might have less health, which makes him a little easier, but what they're trying to do is ramp up the difficulty as you move through the game, and they do. They ratchet the difficulty up. The last level was kind of tough. It really was tough, honestly, and I was playing on normal, and maybe that makes me a bit of a wuss, and everyone who's watching this will be like, you couldn't beat this game on normal without struggling? And I'll say, yeah, I couldn't, but I'm 35 years old, so that's probably why. But I found the game challenging. I really did. And that was on the normal difficulties. And I'm sure as you ratchet them up, you get up to Mania. It's going to be Mania because normal was hard. But all in all, the gameplay is what you expect. That's just what it is. And the variation keeps you looking forward to boss fights. There are other modes of this game, but this is where I'm going to pivot into a little bit of the negative. So we talked a lot about what was kind of good with this game, what kind of felt good. Let's talk a little bit about what feels kind of bad. And I don't want to be too negative because I think this was a good game. This was a solid, fun experience. But I wanted to play co-op online. I'd kind of read up on co-op and I heard it was fun. I heard this game excels when you have more than one person playing the game at a time. It's fine to go through the levels by yourselves and you'll have a decently good time. But I've heard this game kicks butt when you can hop online and play with a group. And you know what? For the life of me, I could not find a game to join. I tried a couple times and I just kept getting the same notification that no games were available. Now, I don't know if this is a me problem or if no one else is playing this game online, but it definitely takes away from some of the fun. If co-op really is that good of a time, I want to experience co-op. And right now, I just can't. So I have to mark that into the negative column, because if I can't say that it's a me problem, then it has to be a problem with the game, and it has to either be a problem with the servers or people just aren't playing this game online. The other modes are just kind of grind sessions. You can fight bosses, you can fight other people. There's really nothing much to speak of, and if you're going to play the game, I would stick with the story mode, in all honesty. The story, I've mentioned this a million times, but you would kind of expect it to be paper thin, and really that's what you get. There is a story, it does connect to the previous entries, but it's flat and it's a bit silly. It does the job though. I mentioned a little bit that the game feels kind of samey, and I do wish that they would have spiced it up a bit. Each level could have had some different villains versus different versions of the people we'd already faced. I mean, through the first few levels, you get some different opponents, but really when you get towards the end of the game, you're getting a lot of what you've already seen, just with the difficulty amped up a little bit. At first, it was really cool to see the Orange Cassidy sort of guy with his hands in his pockets, fighting with just his feet, but by the end of the game, I was pretty over it. So here come the spoilers, and I want to say that you are more than welcome to skip this session. I can't really spoil the story, there isn't really much there to spoil. What I can spoil, though, is what you can unlock. So if you want to skip that, move on to the timestamp below. That's a good place to go. If you go there, you're not going to have to worry about spoiling the game. Here's your final warning. So there is a lot of retro stuff to unlock in this game. You can unlock several characters from Streets of Rage past and a few retro levels. They're ultimately boss fights, but they're still pretty cool to go back and play those old levels if you don't have older versions of this game. I can play through this entire game as Axel from the older Streets of Rage games, and that's pretty cool. There are CRT filters that you can add to make the game feel more retro. The only issue I have here is that it is a real grind to unlock these characters. If you want to play as a retro character, you really, really, really have to earn it. You have to unlock a certain number of points. I can't remember how many it is. Now, you get points as you play the game. They accumulate. So you don't stop gaining points. As you play the game, you're going to gain points, and those points will stay with you throughout your career playing the game, basically. Now, does that make it easy? No, heck no. This is a grind. You're going to feel it if you want to unlock these characters. They're fun to play as. They're fun to unlock. You're going to feel it. So my overall verdict of this game, there were times that I really, really liked this game. But there were also times that I was pretty frustrated with it. The game can be pretty difficult, but it does encapsulate the feel of a retro beat 'em up very well. The art is great, the music is phenomenal, and the game provides me with plenty of reasons to play it again. There is some variety in boss fights, but we could have used a little more in the basic enemies. The level designs are as good as can be expected with a few minor inconveniences. Overall, Streets of Rage 4 is a great comeback for the series, and I would recommend any fan pick it up and give it a try. 7 out of 10. Take me back to the streets and get me some numb cream from my thumb, because the boy hurts. Hey, did you enjoy yourself? If so, go ahead and slap a like on this video. If you like me and you want to see more of what I got to offer, go ahead and subscribe. Comment, let me know what you think. Let me know what did you think of Streets of Rage 4? Did you play it? Are you a fan of side-scrolling beat-em-ups? Let me know. Thank you for watching.